Why, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, a Tekken survival challenge. This might come as a surprise to most of you guys, but long time ago, actually about a year ago, pretty much a year ago exactly, I was a Tekken channel for like 2 months, not particularly long. And within those 2 months, my channel got, which was at the time, a pretty massive spike. I went from having about 90 subscribers to having about 2,500, almost 3,000 subscribers. But as I tend to do, I got pretty bored with doing it, so I decided to shift, and now I'm not a Tekken channel anymore. But I never lost those 3,000 subscribers, which means out there somewhere in the ether, there are at least 3,000 people that have just been waiting patiently to just guzzle up all that sweet Tekken content. And I have been starving these poor people. So I'm currently feeling in the giving spirits because, you know, Christmas and all that I should bestow upon them my massive Tekken load. So this is for you guys out there, the ones who've been with me for over a year, all the way back in my Tekken days. I put a clean towel down, just lay on back and prepare for me to fill you up with all this Tekken goodness. You dirty whores. And if you enjoy the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. But I'm wasting up your time. Let's get started. So Tekken is kind of the perfect series to have one of these survival challenges in. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure why it's taken me so long to actually utilize it. Because the creator of the game series is batshit insane, and his writing philosophy is basically just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks. Like, he's literally come out and said how he creates characters and storylines is he just comes up with shit, tells the writing team, and they have to fucking force it in somehow. This apparently happens in every single Tekken game and has built the entire series. Not the best strategy if you want to make like a well-written, super deep, good story, but if you want to make a survival challenge, it works pretty fucking well. And by doing that, he's made the type of series where he can have a boxing velociraptor, or a hot anime android bitch who takes her head off and chucks it and explodes and her head grows back, or a Mexican wrestler who wears a leopard mask who literally never takes it off and insists on only speaking in leopard. It's a type of series where every single character in the game speaks the language of whatever country of origin they're from, and yet everybody can understand each other, despite the fact that they're all speaking different languages. Like, you can have a scene in this series where you have an Italian guy, a Japanese guy, an American woman, and a bear all in a room speaking Japanese, Italian, English, and bear, and they all understand each other. Yes, people talk to the bear and understand the bear. What is the point of having alternate languages if everyone understands each other? The entire roster within this whole series are just master linguists who know like 50 fucking languages. It's ridiculous, but it's also like super endearing, and I just like it. And the series works this way with power levels as well. No joke, the power creep here is real. If you go all the way back to like Tekken 1 and 2, the strongest feat in the whole series is like Paul punching through a brick wall, and Paul is like the physical bruiser, strong type character. He was the strength-based character. That was like the most impressive shit ever then. As you get farther in the series, these same characters can like blow up countries and threaten the world, like the whole planet. This means for the purpose of these survival challenges, I have a large list of characters that I could choose from and just throw them in here, and I'll find some place where they fit or some interesting storyline that I can put them through. You can take a character that can only punch through a wall and stick him in Tekken 1 and 2 and possibly have an interesting story with him going through where he won't be instantly slaughtered. But you can also take characters that are planet busters and throw them in later in the series, and it still works pretty well. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because unlike other challenges where I take a specific moment or a specific time period or a specific event or something that happened in that series and chuck them in that particular event, here I'm just kind of put them wherever seems the most interesting for that person to be. Which is why when you look at the list of survivors that are actually in this video, you'll notice their power levels are all over the fucking place. Now, for sure, most of these characters I'm probably going to throw into the events of Tekken 6. Because Tekken 6 is where World War III happens. Yes, World War III happens in this series. And World Wars are just inherently interesting to throw people into. You know, that's why Hitler did the second one. Because the storytelling of the world was getting a little stale, and he felt that, you know, Earth needed some character development. So for each of the survivors that I have in this video, I'm gonna look at them and I'm gonna see what they might do or what might happen if you put them in different locations at different time periods throughout the Tekken series, because there might be some, you know, multiple interesting things that could happen throughout the series with these characters. Got it? Okay, cool. Got it. So let's move on to the survivors. First up on the chopping block, we have Liu Kang from the Mortal Kombat series. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you probably know that this isn't gonna go anywhere good. Because you know, I really don't like the Mortal Kombat series. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've made a cool world. As far as the Mortal Kombat world goes, it's one of the coolest in gaming. I just personally wish the stories that were told in that world and the characters that inhabited it were good, but they're not. They're not even really average, or below average, or even dog shit. They rape me. They're fucking horrible. They're so bad. And that goes the same for Liu Kang. He's so boring. Oh my God, is he boring? He's so boring. I didn't know anybody could be so boring. He sucks. He's a terrible protagonist. There's literally nothing to get invested in his story. He's awful. But Rouga, he might be terrible and boring and awful in every way, but he's super powerful because he becomes Fire God Liu Kang. He's like a multiversal, ridiculous, over-the-top master of fucking the universe and shit. It's awesome. He's gonna fucking dominate the Tekken universe. No, he's not. Because Mortal Kombat is weak as shit. So to be fair and give them a little bit of credit, prior to NetherRealm coming in and fucking up what little good story they already had, like the most powerful thing that we had seen prior to the NetherRealm timeline is Shao Kahn and Raiden fighting each other, and their clashing shook the entire planet. So that's pretty cool. And I guess that's technically still canon with the current timeline, but nothing like that has happened at all, even close in the current time. Like, they're so weak. The strongest shit that we see these characters do didn't actually happen. They're all like fatality shit. Like Cetra growing to the size of a planet in her fatality is really cool. It would be cool if she did that in the actual story of the game. She doesn't. Characters in the game are harmed by bullets. Okay, so just to not waste time and to clarify my point, I don't normally do this, but okay, here's Mortal Kombat. And here's Tekken. Mortal Kombat.
Oh, that's freaky like Friday.
Tekken.
I'm too fast to get caught by a bullet.
Mortal Kombat.
Thanks, Kano,
For what?
for reminding me of the rules.
Tekken.
執念もお前は全てが浅い
Are you seeing a fucking difference here? They're not on the same level. They're not even close to the same level. Everything from speed to power to just straight up skill is superior in Tekken than it is Mortal Kombat. And you might be thinking, well, Rouga, that's like the regular base people, sure, but Liu Kang is an elder god. It's not the same thing. Elder gods can do all kinds of crazy shit. Really? Can they? Because Shinnok was an elder god, and Shinnok got his ass kicked by fucking Johnny Cage. And before you say, well, Johnny Cage had that specific power that allowed him to fight against gods, yes, it did. It allowed him to hurt Shinnok. Basically, it had durability negation, allowed him to bypass Shinnok's defenses. That doesn't explain how both of these characters were the same speed, equivalent strength levels, and how Johnny Cage was a more skilled fighter. If you give me durability negation and just like, okay, all my punches will hurt anybody I hit, doesn't matter. If I go and try to fight Goku, I'm not winning because he's better than me. He's faster than me. He's stronger than me. I don't stand a chance. Shinnok, physically speaking, even as an elder god, is still physically comparable to normal fucking dudes. And yes, this is also the case with Fire God Liu Kang. I mean, shit, Kronika was straight up stated to be more powerful than all of the elder gods. This was a big part of the plot, and she gets beaten by literally every character on the roster canonically. It's been stated by the creators of the series that all of the characters' arcade endings are canon and happened in alternate timeline. In fact, the animated Mortal Kombat Snowblind movie actually shows what would happen if Kano defeated her of all fucking people. Kano was killed by being shot in the face. These characters are not that powerful, and I'm not upping all their power levels because of some fatalities that don't even canonically happen in the story. But even if I did count the fatalities as actually a part of their power level, which again, it's not. I mean, Cyrax is a fucking fatality where he blows up the whole planet, and Cyrax is nowhere near the strongest character in that series, so you basically have to assume that every character on the fucking roster are planet busters. We know that's not true. There's literally a scene in Mortal Kombat 11 where all the hero characters are running for their lives away from a single tank. They are not this powerful. But let's just for a second say that they are, and Liu Kang can actually just open up a black hole and throw his enemy inside of it, like he does in his fatality. Okay, cool. Devil Jin can do this. Let me remind you, Devil Jin is not the strongest character on the roster. Base Jin and Kazuya both surpass him, and that's before they unlock the Angel Jin and True Devil Kazuya forms, which completely dwarf their previous power. It's really nice that Liu Kang can open up this little black hole. It's very cute, but he is completely outdone by the top tiers of Tekken. Absolute 100% best case scenario, we give Liu Kang full control over the hourglass where he can rewrite all of time, okay? Let's just pretend for a second that he's in the Tekken world and yet he still has the hourglass, even though the hourglass doesn't exist in the Tekken world, but let's just say that it does for this one particular point that I'm making. He's shown to have massive fucking limits in how he rewrites the timeline. He can't delete anyone from existence. He directly states that, and it doesn't matter what he rewrites or what he changes, everything always returns to the way it was in the timeline. Like, for instance, he got rid of the Tarkatans completely. Super racist, by the way. Baraka was no longer a Tarkatan, ergo, all the race... You know, that's actually a really, really solid point. An issue that they brought up in the NetherRealm games was that people were super racist against the Tarkatans, and the Tarkatans were treated like shit, which made them become these sort of violent, like awful people. It was all due to this racism that was afflicted upon them. So Liu Kang's idea to fix that was to erase them from existence and just make them all humans. Like, how can you look at that and not think that that's racist? Imagine me trying to get rid of racism by just making all black people white. That's what Liu Kang does in this game. Like, I don't normally do this, but Mortal Kombat's actually a pretty fucking racist series. Like, for instance, Jax's arcade ending for Mortal Kombat 11, they built his character. He's a character that cares a lot about family. That's the most important thing to him. Before he had a family, it was his comrades in the military. After that, they built him up as someone who really cares about his family and wants the best for his family. He's mourning his wife. He doesn't actually want his daughter to join the military because he fears for her safety. That's his whole character in Mortal Kombat 11. So in his arcade ending, when he wins, gets to the hourglass, and is capable of rewriting all of time, what does he do? You'd think he would like bring his wife back or like make his family happy or I don't know, something like that. No! He makes a wish that says that black people take over the planet. What? They're very vague about what his wish is. They just say that he makes a wish that fixes everything for black people. And then all we see is just a society completely run by black people. And there's no white people in it. And it's like, why did you give him this wish? Is it because he's the black guy? Why does his wish have nothing to do with his character at all? Look, the writing of Mortal Kombat's terrible, but Jax was still a character with like a defined personality and shit. But you just threw all that away to just be like, he's just the black guy now. It's so terrible and condescending and insulting. Like a bunch of white dudes at NetherRealm just wrote a scene that they're like, oh, black people are gonna love this. This is gonna be a real fist pumping moment for the blacks. Jesus Christ, NetherRealm. What was I talking about? Right. The Tarkatans. He changes all of time and gets rid of the Tarkatans so that the racism would end. But the Tarkatans still come back in the form of a disease, and then all of the human characters get infected by the disease and turn into Tarkatans. So characters who were Tarkatans in the previous timeline are still Tarkatans now. It's just not a race anymore, it's disease instead. Another change he made was making Shao Kahn like this sickly child so he could never grow into become Shao Kahn. And he gets over his sickness and still grows up to become General Khan and try to take over Edenia. Like, it doesn't matter what changes he makes, it still reverts back to what the previous timeline was, because there's like certain events in the timeline that will happen the same way. So basically, even if we do give him the hourglass, he rewrites all of Tekken to get rid of all of his enemies, it's not going to change anything. Kazuya and Jin and all these characters, they might be different. Some things might go a little differently, but they'll all reset back to the way they're supposed to be. It'll all be similar. He's never going to make Heihachi a good person. He's never going to stop Kazuya from wanting world domination. That shit's going to go over into the new timeline as well. So basically, the hourglass is completely worthless. You can't overcome your enemies using the hourglass. You could just prolong the inevitable. So to get to the actual purpose of this video, how would Liu Kang do if we chucked him in the Tekken universe? Like usual, it depends on where you put him. If you put him in Tekken 1 or 2, he'd do fine. I think once you put him in Tekken 3, he'll probably struggle a little bit, because then you start introducing characters that are capable of just straight up stripping him of his power. Like there's a character in Tekken 3 called Ogre, who's the god of fighting, and he literally has the power to suck the life force and chi out of the people he fights against, amplifying his own power. Even if he is more powerful than Ogre at the start, which admittedly he will be, Ogre will surpass him. We already see Ogre in Tekken 3 grow to the size of like a building and just start destroying helicopters that are flying by with giant fire blasts, which is more impressive than 99% of the fucking Mortal Kombat roster. Since, you know, we see all of the main heroes of the story running away from a fucking tank, I don't really see a reason why Ogre wouldn't just steal all Liu Kang's powers. And if that is the case, he would become even more powerful, be Fire God Ogre, which that'd be kind of cool. And then he'll become far more powerful than he was in the game originally, and Jin might not even be able to beat him if they got into a fight. Now, let's say Liu Kang's skill does overcome Ogre, which admittedly it probably will. Liu Kang is a skill fighter. He comes to an absolute 100% dead stop in the series once you get to Tekken 5. Probably 5. 5 is where they introduced Jinpachi, and Jinpachi is the first world-ending threat. And the truth is, just Fire God Liu Kang isn't shown. There's no evidence that he's a world-ending threat, or that he could be a world-ending threat if he wanted to. Like I said, the only really impressive thing he does requires the hourglass. Everything else is just kind of whatever. Nobody destroys a country in the Mortal Kombat universe. No one destroys a large building in the Mortal Kombat universe. They're just not really that powerful. They're slow and kind of superhuman-ish. But that's really it. There isn't a whole lot more going on there. I mean, shit, the only character we see who consistently reacts to bullets is Cabal. He's the fastest dude in the whole franchise. In Tekken, I don't think there's a single person on the roster who can't react to bullets. Bullets are not a threat to them at all. We've seen several characters in Mortal Kombat be straight up murdered by bullets. This is just in no way a close fight. Even if he could fight against some of these characters, which he can't, they're just way too powerful for him, he's likely getting his fucking soul sucked by Kazuya and having his power added to Kazuya's power. I mean, Kazuya has been shown that he can absorb the souls of gods to increase his own power. He does it to Azazel, and Azazel is considerably stronger than Liu Kang is. Yeah, no, he's done. And his characterization, again, boring, but because he's just sort of generic hero character, and there's not really anything else to him other than generic hero character, he's gonna just do the generic hero thing, which is to try and stop all the bad guys who were causing shit to happen. Even if Liu Kang does ignore G Corporation, the Mishima Zaibatsu, which are the main powers of the universe of Tekken. Even if he chooses to ignore them throughout the first, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, he's not going to be able to ignore them once they start World War III and Tekken 6. At that point, they're actually risking the complete destruction of the entire planet, and he's going to have to get involved. And if he does that, he's fucking dead. He can't beat Kazuya, he can't beat Jin. It's not gonna happen. Next up on the list, we have Kazuma Kiryu from the Yakuza series. Why is this called the Yakuza series again? Like, if you haven't played the series, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because Kiryu is the Yakuza for like an hour. Like an hour of gameplay time. The series has like, what, 8 games now? 9 games? He starts the game in the Yakuza. He goes to jail at the very beginning of the game. When he gets out of jail, he's not in the Yakuza anymore. And that's just like the prologue of the game. The next 50, 60 hours he spent in the game, he's not in the Yakuza. And he never goes back. You can literally spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours across all these games. And like I said, one of them is he a Yakuza. This game series should be called Like a Dragon, not Yakuza. Fucking translators, man. So for fans of Mortal Kombat, don't freak out. Just because Kiryu is above Liu Kang in this particular list does not mean that I think that Kiryu would beat up Liu Kang. He wouldn't. Liu Kang's better. But it does mean that he will survive longer, because he will. So there's a couple of different ways that you can interpret the power levels of the Yakuza franchise. You can take everything that happens in the game as literally, or you can take it as what I think is probably implied by a lot of moments in the game, that they're not actually using that level of power, but that more so you're watching an exaggerated version of what's actually happening. Like in the Yakuza games with Ichiban, I don't think the special moves they use in these games are supposed to be taken literally. Like Gojo literally jumps off a skyscraper and just fabricates a bunch of weapons, creates them out of nothing, and then smashes the ground. Like, he didn't create these weapons out of nothing. He doesn't have these types of powers. This is clearly not supposed to be taken seriously. But then you have other moments in previous games that are kind of the same way. Like at one point, Gojo is fighting Kiryu, and Gojo smashes Kiryu's head on the ground, and then the whole concrete flooring just smashes through as he puts him through the floor. And this would require a massive amount of strength. However, there is an earthquake going on at the time, and there's a massive shake to the screen before Kiryu's head hits, which I think is very strongly implying that the floor collapsed because of the earthquake and not necessarily because he punched his way through it. And I think that's kind of the way most of the series works, where it's like, it's sort of based on interpretation. It's not really going to matter too much for the purpose of this video, because regardless of which interpretation we go with, Kiryu is not defeating most of the people in this series. If we throw him in early on in the series, like Tekken 1 or 2, he's going to be okay. He's going to be pretty decently. He may get really far in the tournament. Maybe he can win. Depending on the version of Kiryu we use, he might be able to win the tournament. Because the Tekken characters in the first 2 games are pretty weak. I don't think he's beaten Devil Kazuya in Tekken 2, but he might win Tekken 1, maybe. Like I said, all they really do is punch through brick walls. Kiryu can do that regardless of what version you use. Once you get to 3, still maybe, kinda, depending if you use the strong version of Kiryu, you might do okay. By the time you get to 5, Kiryu is completely outmatched. Doesn't matter what version you use. You can multiply his power by 10. He's still not competing with Tekken. Like I said, the power creep is real in the Tekken series, but that's not really where the interesting story lies. The interesting story is gonna lie with, like most things, World War III, because that's what World Wars do. They make shit more interesting. Shortly after the first Yakuza game, Kiryu just kind of fucks off, and he goes and gets this little orphanage, and he's taking care of a bunch of these kids who are orphans with this chick, and everything's going well, and that's all cool and everything. But if he was in the Tekken universe just doing that, just chilling, minding his own business, eventually World War III is gonna break out. So I haven't explained this before, but I'll explain it now. Basically, within the Tekken universe, there are 3 great powers of the world. You have the G Corporation, the Mishima Zaibatsu, and the UN. Yes, there are 2 companies that have equivalent, if not more, power than the entirety of the United Nations. There's actually a part of Tekken that's really cool, but they don't focus on at all. People in Tekken can be loyal to their country. That is something that does occur occasionally, but a lot of people, in fact, I might even say most people, are loyal to a corporation, whether it be G Corporation or Mishima Zaibatsu. They are the strongest world power of the entire series, and they control literally everything. Like, it's very similar to like Cyberpunk, how corporations control everything and Night City is basically dominated by Arasaka. It's like that, but on a much larger scale. It would be like if you were born in America or one of the other shitty ones, but you weren't loyal to that place. Instead, you were loyal to your employer, who is like Apple or something. It's very strange. They need to do more storylines with this, because it's a very unique aspect of the world, and they just don't touch on it all that much. It's It's weird. This is cool, guys. Do something with this. Anyway, what ends up happening is that Jin takes control of the Mishima Zaibatsu because it's basically, the whole series is basically just the Mishimas playing musical chairs with these companies, controlling it at different times and using it to do all kinds of different fucked up shit. Well, at one point, Jin finds out the whole world is under threat of being destroyed at some point by this god being who slumbers, and that chaos will wake it up, so he decides to start World War III to wake it up because he wants to kill it. And he hopes that by killing it, he'll destroy the Devil Gene, which is what he's been wanting to destroy the entire series. It's like a whole plot line. But basically, this war involves literally every single country on the planet. It is the largest of all the world wars. Because if you're going to make a trilogy, you always go out big. Well, once this happens, there literally isn't a soul on planet Earth that can avoid getting involved. If Kiryu is running this sort of orphanage thing with this chick and all these little kids, he's gonna have fucking issues involved in this war. This war is going to be brought to his doorstep and he will have to get involved. It's kind of gonna be a similar story to King's story. King is the guy with the leopard mask who speaks only in leopard, Mexican luchador guy. Yeah, so he was an orphan as a kid, and he has a soft spot for orphans, and as he grew up, he decided to create his own orphanage, and he started accepting kids, and then he expanded it, and he eventually made this international orphanage company or whatever, where he basically deals with all of the world's orphans. It's really goofy if you actually think about it too hard. But basically, he has orphanages all over the world, and he tries to take care of the world's orphans. Well, his plotline in World War III involves so many people dying that it creates a number of orphans that his entire international corporation can't deal with. There's too many orphans for him to be able to take care of, which forces him to get involved with the war and try to have it end as soon as possible. I think something similar with Kiryu is going to happen. He may actually contact King to sort of try and make a deal so that the kids can be protected or something. I think he may have some sort of storyline involving King, which would be interesting, but it's also possible that he'll just kind of be on his own in his own little corner of the world and just try to protect his kids from whatever's happening. Like, I think you'll see a side story with Kiryu, who is getting fucked with by probably Mishima Zaibatsu, not G Corporation. He's gonna go through his whole own little story, and it's eventually going to lead to him fighting a final boss and all that. But the final boss isn't going to be someone who's on the roster, because at this point, the whole roster is so powerful, they would all one-shot Kiryu. But I do think that he'll come to some very serious blows with a Mishima Zaibatsu captain or commander or something. It might have his own sort of a small-scale side story. Like, I don't think Kiryu's ever going to come to the point where he's like, oh, I have to stop this war. Let me go fucking kill Jin. For one, like I said, he'd be instantly obliterated. But also, that's not really Kiryu's deal. His stories are always small scale. He doesn't want to save the entire planet. He just wants to take care of the people around him and do what's right by them. He usually deals with gangs and other Yakuza members and, like I said, small scale stuff. So I think he will have issues with the war because literally everybody gets involved with it. But I think it's going to be more so like he's in his town looking after these kids. Some members of Zaibatsu show up, start bombing buildings, taking over shit, occupying the town, and he'll have to deal with those specific people. It'll be a cool little story about this one really talented martial artist who has to take on Mishima Zaibatsu during the war, and once he defends his town successfully, the war will eventually end and he'll have to continue on with his life. I don't think that he'll die, not only at that point, but really any other point in the timeline, because I don't think he's gonna put himself in a situation or go out of his way to fuck with people he clearly can't defeat. And they don't really have any reason to fuck with him, since for the most part, Kiryu just wants to do his thing and be left alone and live peacefully. So I think you can actually have some really cool stories with Kiryu in this universe. Those stories just won't really involve any characters on the roster of the game. Like I said, the only one I can really think of maybe is King. I could even see Kiryu possibly getting a job for King, working for his organization. That would be kind of cool. Watching those two kind of interact with each other and teaming up to help orphans is just like a really wholesome story, and I'd like to see that. That sounds nice. Next up, we have Superman from the Injustice series. And don't freak out, any of the Superman fans are like, why isn't Superman last on the list? Why is he here? What's going on? Like I said, this is Injustice Superman. Injustice Superman is nowhere near as powerful as comic book Superman. It doesn't even come close. Injustice Superman's greatest feats ever, like his most powerful shit, is he shakes the planet of Apocalypse while fighting Darkseid, and he lifts up the country of Atlantis, but he does it with the help of Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Shazam, and all 4 of them were super, super hard struggling. It was very clear that Superman could not do that by himself. So the universe-breaking, planet-destroying being that is Superman in the comic books, the Injustice version is not. So where would we put Injustice Superman in the timeline of Tekken? Honestly, I think there's only one place you can't put him. Anywhere too early and Superman just washes the whole freaking universe. You gotta get him to a point where the tech characters can actually fight back in some way. And I think the most thematically relevant would probably be, again, World War III, Tekken 6. Because Injustice Superman's whole story is about him being like a good dude, and then his wife and baby dies, and he gets really pissed. They're killed by Joker. And then he decides to just take over the planet and stop all the chaos and whatever, and he becomes like this authoritarian dictator. So the best way to squeeze Injustice Superman into the Tekken universe is to just have him be in Tekken 6, and then when Jin decides to go to war with the world and just starts bombing countries all across the planet, guess who accidentally gets hit? Lois Lane and the child of Superman. That way we don't have to change Superman's story at all in this series. It will literally be the exact same story, except now instead of going after to kill the Joker, which he does in like 2 seconds, his goal is going to be killing Jin, a significantly harder target to kill. And honestly, if he wants to take over the whole planet again, he'd have to overcome everybody from Heihachi to Kazuya to the UN to literally the whole planet. He would basically be going to war with the planet just like Jin did. So how well will he actually be able to accomplish that goal? And this really depends on how we look at the Tekken universe's feats, because there's a couple of different ways they can be viewed at. If we go by statements, then Azazel is planetary. And if Azazel is planetary, that means bare minimum Jin and Kazuya are also planetary, given that Kazuya beat Azazel and then absorbed all of Azazel's power. So he should be even more than twice as powerful as Azazel is, since he added Azazel's power to his own, even though he was shown to be more powerful originally. But there really is no way to get around that we've never actually seen anyone blow up a planet in this series. The best feat we've actually seen is that shit I showed you earlier with Devil Jin, where he like blew up, I guess, multiple continents with that laser fire thing to the planet. But that's still kind of consistent with the power level, because Devil Jin isn't as powerful as Azazel, and he gets surpassed by Devil Kazuya, True Devil Kazuya, and then eventually Angel Jin. So it kind of makes sense that Devil Jin would be multi-continental, and then Azazel and everybody above Azazel would be planetary. And for anyone who played Tekken 6 and is saying that Devil Jin actually defeated Azazel, so he should be stronger, no, that's actually not the case. For one, Azazel was not at full power at that point, and he was just beaten by Lars. Lars, sure as shit, isn't planetary, but it was stated in the story that Azazel was not at full power, and as time was going by, he was building power, and they had to stop him immediately, or else he would acquire the power to blow up the planet. This was a few games before Kazuya actually surpassed his full power and then absorbed all of Azazel into himself. So, should be planetary? So what should I actually go with here? Should I go with the statements and just assume that these characters are all probably large planet bare minimum? Or do I just go with what we see, which is that Devil Jin blew up the multi-continents, and there's a couple of characters who are stronger than him, but we don't know exactly how much stronger. You know, Tekken is actually shockingly consistent with its power levels. There aren't that many moments within the series that you can look at and say, like, that doesn't make sense power. Like, they seem to put a lot of effort in making all the powers make sense, and when characters get weaker for some reason, there's always story reasons as to why they're weaker and they lose fights to other characters. For as much as the creators seem to not give a shit about the actual story, that part of it seems like they pay a lot of attention to. I could probably make a whole video just talking about the power levels throughout the series and how they rise and how they compare to one another, because yeah, it's pretty consistent. So how does Superman do in the Tekken universe if this is the case? Doesn't do really well, to be honest with you. At least not if I put him in during the events of Tekken 6, which really, if I put him in any earlier, he'll probably dominate. Well, he might not dominate in Tekken 5, but I still think he probably wins. But by the time Tekken 6 rolls around, it's totally different. Like I said, Superman's best feat is shaking the planet in his fight with Darkseid, and Azazel shakes the planet when he wakes up in Tekken 6, and he's defeated by Lars, who isn't even top 3 strongest characters in Tekken at that time. So Lars beats a dude who has a feat that's twice as impressive as Superman's strongest feat, because when Superman shook the earth, he did it with Darkseid. Their power together hitting is what caused it, and Azazel did it by himself, and then Lars kicked his ass. And then later, Azazel gets back up, and then Jin one-shots him. So, yeah, Superman loses here too. If Superman tries to dominate the planet, it would only really work before Tekken 6, possibly before Tekken 5. After that, he really doesn't stand a chance, because then the top 4 characters of the series are vastly more powerful than Superman. And if we're going to Kazuya can just straight up rip out his soul and absorb his powers. Yeah, he doesn't stand a chance. The one advantage he does have is Superman is considerably faster than anyone in Tekken. Like, Tekken characters come to around relativistic, maybe light speed if I want to wank it. Whereas Superman travels back and forth across the galaxy to all different sorts of planets. He's easily traveling at massively faster than light. And don't give me that whole, well, that's travel speed compared to like reaction speed. They have to be comparable. If I'm flying, not like in a ship, but just me flying to a planet, if I don't have the reaction time to stop in time when I'm going at those speeds, I'm gonna fly through and destroy the fucking planet. And if I stop way too early, I'm literally millions, if not billions of miles away from it. Like, if I'm just a split second off with slowing down or stopping, do you have any idea how much distance that would cover? Like, you would never be able to get to the planet going those speeds. You'd be flying through all kinds of shit without being able to react to them coming towards you, and it'd be chaos. You have to be able to react to it. So even if his reaction speed isn't as high as his travel speed, it has to be comparable. He's so fast, none of them could even possibly touch him, essentially. But he can't kill them either because of just how vastly more powerful they are than he is. And when you get to this sort of hacksy abilities, like Kazuya being able to suck his fucking soul out of his body, I'm not really 100% sure that speed's gonna matter all that much. And honestly, they could probably just outlast him endurance-wise. The Tekken characters fight for ridiculously long periods of time. Far more than anything Superman's shown to do. Superman, for the most part, is shown to have like relatively normal levels of endurance. Like, they're still game character endurance, you know, so they're a little higher, but it's not, he still needs to sleep. Like, he can't stay up for days at a time. Tekken characters can. They really don't need much rest. So if he can't put them down, he'll really just tire himself out and then they can kill him. And they'll be able to kill him in like one shot. He really won't stand a chance. He will not be able to dominate the Tekken world. Not at all. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Tifa Lockhart from the Final Fantasy series. Oh shit, you know what I just noticed? I got two of the most requested Tekken guest characters on this list. Kiryu and Tifa are consistently more requested than any other characters. I didn't even mean to do that. That's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm not even gonna waste your time with this one. Tifa survives a supernova to the face. That's far beyond anything that we've seen any Tekken character be able to do in the past, even the absolute most strongest ones. She would dominate the entire Tekken universe. Now, I do know that there exists a fan theory that says the supernova that she took was an illusion, but there's like no evidence pointing towards that. All the evidence points towards them all being locked into a pocket dimension where this sun explodes, damages them, and then the pocket dimension crashes, and then they go back to wherever they were before. So no, this feat should be literal. She actually took a supernova to the face. And honestly, if you compare her to the power levels of a lot of the summons, it kind of fits. Even some of the weaker summons in the games are still fucking planet busters. So yeah, at any point, if Tifa wants to dominate the Tekken universe, she can. The only real question here is, will she? The only reason why she gets involved in the main story of Final Fantasy VII is because of her connection to Cloud. If Cloud wasn't there, I don't think she would get heavily involved. She may, because she's kind of like a nice person and she cares about people. She's a caring person, you know, very motherly or sisterly, or however you want to view it. She's a good person, so she may have still gotten involved, and she may get involved with more shit that happens in Tekken, but it's also equally possible that she just sort of lives her life and doesn't make the world's problems her problems. She just makes problems for people who specifically bring problems to her. Like, if World War III breaks out, I keep dipping in the World War III well. If World War III breaks out, and Tifa's living off in, I don't know, Japan, wherever she would live, in a Earth-like planet, would she care to make it her goal to go off and like stop the war and get into a fight with Kazuya and Jin on all of them? I don't know. I don't 100% see that being the case. I see her protecting her town, her village, her city, her friends, and really that's it. Because that's kind of what she does in Final Fantasy VII. So yeah, kind of an anticlimactic ending, but if you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII, just be happy in the idea that she would win if she wanted to. You know, that's something. Honestly, I think the more interesting conversation is talking about how she will interact with the other characters in the Tekken universe. You know, characters like Asuka, Lily, Christy. You know, what will they get up to? Pajama parties? Mud wrestling? Pillow fights? Just a bunch of girls being girls? You know? That would be That'd be a cool thing to watch. You know, I'm starting to think that this is probably a really bad pick for this challenge. It's just, what was I thinking? This is way too powerful of a character to put here. It completely freaking brutalizes the whole universe. You know, I think I just added her because of how much plot she adds to the story, you know? Oh, this is a lot. I like the plot. But that's gonna be all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?